My name is still Morten, and I'm still from INKISH, and I'm still here at Napco's, I would say, former headquarters, because they are moving out right now, I can tell you. But this time I'm not talking to Mark, but to Dave Leskusky.
Morten, how are you? Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
It's great, and I think that when we got the opportunity to meet here, it seems that everybody's a little bit more relaxed than when we meet at a trade show, right?
Yeah, a little less stressful.
Yeah. So, how's life for you?
Life's great. We had a great year. I mean, obviously now we're in year 4 of being under the Printing United Alliance, which was a big change for us. Membership's been going well. The media side's been going well. We're growing on both sides, and obviously the expo is kind of the bridge that pulls everything together. So it's been great.
If I should make a small joke, we spoke about when we saw the archives outside. Right?
Yeah.
Was it 94 you started?
1995.
1995.
Yeah, selling classified ads and printing impressions. Yeah.
And it's just like, if you look back at your history and being with this organization, I mean, so many changes, right?
So many changes. I mean, when I started in '95, there was no internet, there was no email, there was no video production in the industry. I mean, basically, I sold 12 issues of a magazine, and then we had a couple supplements, and that was the job. Mm-hmm. And it was a great job, but it was only print. And now everything has changed. I mean, our revenue went from 100% print now to probably about 10% print, and then everything else is digital.
And being active in a Printing United, where printing is supposed to be the leading thing, how does that make you feel?
Well, it's interesting because I think print's evolved over time, and I think when you talk to a lot of people outside the industry, or as we bring in new editors, when you think of print, we ask people, what do you think of? And they think magazines, books, newspapers. But then you really think about all the things that you can actually put ink on, and the industry is so much more than that. It's packaging, it's promotional products, apparel, industrial, printed electronics. And I think that's really where we've evolved to say that it doesn't necessarily, the print medium, we're still a huge believer in it. We think it's more of a premium product now, but the news cycle has changed, and how we consume content has changed, and that has become more digital first. But we still do a really good job of doing things in print. It's just how people consume information has just changed, and we have along with it.
I read an article by a Danish guy a few weeks ago. He used to run a big advertising company in Denmark, and he basically said that in a small culture, and I'm asking whether it also applies to the American culture, he basically said that every time a newspaper, every time a magazine died, every time a printed media went out of business, it was basically a little bit a loss in the culture. Because a magazine, if you have the magazine in 10,000, 100,000 copies, you have the same base for defining you as a reader. Right. If you just find everything on the internet, you have 100,000 different minds, right?
That's right. Yeah, and I think it's a little bit here, but I think it hit us here first. I remember even back in like the late '90s, early 2000s, when newspapers here really started to go away. I would go to Europe, and there were still newspapers all over the airports, all over the hotels. So we've kind of been dealing with this change for a while. And I do think you're seeing that shift back now, where print has really become, there's all kinds of studies that are done. You remember more in print. When kids study in books in print, they remember where they see things on a page. And I think that pendulum's now shifting back a little bit. There's a lot of just digital exhaustion, that's out there. So I think every culture goes through the pendulum swinging one way and the other. Unfortunately, I don't think newspapers are coming back like they were, or even magazines or catalogs, but they're going to evolve, and they're going to be, more personalized and more premium.
Do you think, and I'm not trying to have a leading question, but I was just wondering, do you think there is a tendency that if I'm not saying things are easy, but I'm just saying that if, let's say, selling classifieds as you did, or selling advertising in a print magazine, let's say that in quotation that was easy. That was a relatively simple business model.
It was very simple, yes.
Do you think there has been some kind of laziness in the publishing side of the industry, where they have not really tried to reinvent and find new business models, or?
Not necessarily. I think what's changed is the marketing side of the business. I think the difficult thing with print, even when I used to sell it, when it was great, you really couldn't measure it. Sure, you had bingo cards in the back, and there were 800 numbers. But ultimately, the old John Wanamaker comment, I knew 50% of my advertising advertising was working, I just didn't know which 50%. And as things have changed, marketers wanted to know what they could actually measure, whether those measurements were right or not. I mean, look at the amount of ad fraud in the digital realm now, right? And it's kind of, being uncovered more and more. But people gravitated to that because they could measure it, whether it was email, open and click-through rate, whether it was digital ad click-throughs. Now you're dealing with bot traffic and fake traffic and all the kinds of stuff that we're dealing with, right? AI-generated content, right? So I don't think it was laziness on the publishers necessarily. I think it was driven more so by the agency side and the marketing side, because that's how they were being measured. And if they couldn't measure print, they weren't going to use it. So it was kind of that self-fulfilling prophecy.
One of the things that a lot of vendors are talking about, especially those who are in the embellishment market, always talk about the tactile experience of print. If I say art and just think of print as not a commercial product, but as an art product,
sure.
What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, I actually love that. I think especially, with the direct mail side, the catalog side, direct mail, I think, is really still a really viable product. But the pieces that are the best are the ones that are personalized, that have tactile, even, things that have, scented inks, those type of things, where it's driving you to a digital experience. But everybody in the U.S. still looks forward to what's in their mailbox, every day. So I do think it's more of an art form, and I think, you say art, I look at it as being more premium, as more of a premium product. But completely agree with you.
But I agree with you as well. But I was thinking also, like, if we get down to the word art, where we talk about books that are just made for being beautiful, basically,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I think that, if we live in a society where basically most of us have more than enough, right? And I was just wondering, if you look at Maslow's pyramid of needs, right? I was just thinking that maybe sometimes you could have, and I do think also some printers are really good at like making really, really super exclusive products. And I'm not talking about having our industry as a museum industry, but I was thinking that maybe there's something that also we as an industry could emphasize more, that it's not just a commercial piece, but it also have a cultural influence in our societies.
Yeah, and I think too, when you think about from an art perspective, when you think about just personal things, whether it's a photo book of your family, whether it's personalized anything, whether it's a piece of photography that you're putting on the wall, or remembrances of things. I think that's kind of where that art form, it doesn't necessarily just have to be something that's phenomenal, but I think it's your personal experience as well. And I think that's where the Shutterflies of the world and a lot of the online plays have done a really, really nice job of bringing in, you become the artist and print just becomes the vehicle that then represents it.
As an organization, do you think that organizations in the world should take maybe more responsibility for promoting print, more generally speaking, or?
Yeah, I would love to see that. I mean, I think in certain cases that they do. I think, unfortunately, that's one area. I'm not sure about Europe and in the U.S. As an industry, we've never done a great job of, even as printers, as OEMs, or even sometimes as media organizations, done a really good job of really touting the benefits of print. We've tried it from time to time. But again, as we talked about marketers and agencies earlier, it really came down to, show me what I can measure. So yeah, I think we all need to do a better job of that. But I think there's been a lot of brands that have tried it. We've certainly tried it with, unfortunately, not great results in some way. So if you can figure out a way to do that works, I'm all ears.
I'm not sure I can figure that out, but what I'm pretty sure about is an interesting thing is that when we go to trade shows, Pretty United Inclusive, all OEMs, all the creatives, even the organizations and the magazines and publishers spend a lot of time of making really beautiful applications and samples, right? So it must mean something to the industry to create these craftsmanships and also develop technology that can basically supply this, even in the digital space, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, unfortunately, in those trade shows, a lot of times, we're talking to ourselves. We're in an echo chamber, right? Because it's the printers that are coming there, looking at all the great artwork that we're doing. How do we get the agencies involved? How do we get the design community involved? And I think there have been some really good people within our industry, doing that. What Deb's doing, and other people that are doing to get.
I think it's Sabine Lenz
and Sabine, that's get in front of the designers and that community. And I think that's really where we have to go to get. And I think The other thing I love about our industry is everybody thinks about, you know, digital. What can you do digitally, whether it's from a variable perspective, a personalization perspective. I think what's really cool and what we don't do a great job of is that anything that you can do digitally on the web, we can pretty much do the same thing in print if we have the right data. And I think we need to get that across as well.
And last question, I was just wondering, and that is like, again, I have no answers to it, so it's more like a speculation. Just imagine that we could measure print.
Yeah.
Would that be something that could convince the marketeers, you think?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we've certainly tried it over the years. I mean, after the bingo cards went away, we were in the QR code phase. You know, we were in the augmented reality phase, really trying to get people to interact and be able to measure. The only difference being there is that when we were a controlled circulation, we know exactly where every magazine was going. We didn't have bots with the ability to open those pages and do that thing, and you know, probably didn't have some of the other things. So if we can get to that point, and I think that's where direct mail is so impactful, where you can actually measure the print to digital conversion. If we can get there from a magazine perspective, I think that would be wonderful.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Likewise.
Got it.